It's that time of year again, back to school season, and Instacart knows that the only thing harder than getting back into the swing of things is getting all the back to school supplies, snacks, and essentials you need. So here's your reminder to make your life a little easier this season. Shop favorites from Staples, Best Buy, and Costco, all delivered through Instacart, so that you can get some time back and do whatever it is that you need to get your life back on track. Instacart, we're here.
Hi, this is Joe from Vanta. In today's digital world, compliance regulations are changing constantly, and earning customer trust has never mattered more. Vanta helps companies get compliant fast and stay secure with the most advanced AI, automation, and continuous monitoring out there. So whether you're a startup going for your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a growing enterprise managing vendor risk, Vanta makes it quick, easy, and scalable. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Get started at Vanta.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kilowatt, a podcast about electric vehicles, renewable energy, autonomous driving, and much, much more. My name is Bodie, and I am your host. And on today's episode, we are going to cover the news. I said that with a question mark because I accidentally just logged myself out of my Google Doc. So let me put my password back in. There we go. We are going to cover the news, he said with confidence this time. Before we do that, though, I do want to just kind of give a shout out. James from True North EVs just dropped a new episode, and it's on charging etiquette. If you would like to take a listen, and I would highly encourage you to do that, I will drop a link in the show notes. And then for those who are interested in the Slate pickup truck, the mid $20,000 pickup truck that is bare bones, but also allows you to customize it to the nth degree, as long as, you're not worried about having manual windows. But you can do a lot of customizing. It's a cool truck. Lamar Wilson passed on a video. I think it's from CNBC. Anyway, it's a cool video. If you've never heard of Slate, then you should definitely go check it out. And if you just want to learn a little bit more about Slate and hear some of the leadership interviewed, you could definitely do that. It's not that a super long video. It's not short, but it's not super long. I can't remember. I think it's like 12 minutes long. But yeah, I would highly encourage you to go check it out. Also, I'll put the link in the show notes. All right, moving on to our EV news. California is signaling that they want to keep the $7,500 federal tax credit going. Well, kind of, not at a federal level, but at a state level. So we'll see where that goes. Gavin Newsom is, I think he's getting ready to run for president. So I think him doing stuff like this might be political in nature, but who knows? I don't know who proposed it, and I don't want to sound cynical. But if I was going to be cynical, I would say this is in a bid for the presidency in 2028. Granted that it doesn't benefit anybody outside of California, but the same, he can point to it, is what I'm trying to get at. Anyway, NIO, a Chinese EV maker, will expand operations into Singapore, Uzbekistan, and Costa Rica. Right now, NIO is currently operating in China, Europe, the Middle East, mostly the United Arab Emirates, and then it looks like the Firefly brand is making inroads into Nepal, Singapore, Costa Rica, Uruguay, and Colombia, and New Zealand. And that's according to ChatGPT, because I couldn't be bothered to do the research and make sure that it was correct. But anyway, I love NIO, and I'm glad to see they're expanding. I don't know that any of those are huge markets, but it's good to see them moving into new markets. The redesigned 2026 Nissan Leaf is looking very impressive. Just for context, the original Nissan Leaf, in my opinion, looked ugly. It was awful. The new Nissan Leaf looks fantastic. So let's do a quick comparison between the old Nissan Leaf and the current Nissan Leaf. The old Nissan Leaf launched in 2011, right? It started at $33,000 and had a range of 73 miles. $33,000 in today's money would be just over $47,000. So not a cheap car, not a cheap car at the time. Not a lot of EVs, admittedly, on the road in 2011, but you paid a premium for that electric car. The 2026 Nissan Leaf starts at $30,000, which in current pricing is $30,000. The S Plus, which has a 75 kilowatt hour battery, and actually they all have a 75 kilowatt hour battery, it comes with a starting range of 303 miles. And here's the kicker. The more expensive versions of the car have less range. So same battery size, less range. So the SV Plus is $34,000 and it has 288 miles. And the Platinum is $39,000 and it has 259 miles. All of these trims come with an NACS port, so you can, charge at most, EV charging stations that offer CCS2 as well as NACS. And then you can also charge on the supercharger network as well. I think the new, honestly, when I first saw the new Nissan Leaf, when I first saw the picture, the first thing I thought was, oh, this is the new Chevy Bolt. Like it has kind of that feel. It's a bigger car. And it has an updated look. The Nissan Leaf, it was just, it had, let's say its design had run its course. It was looking very dated. So I'm very happy that the new Nissan Leaf is out there. And I'm also happy that it doesn't come with the CHAdeMO port. That's the original Nissan Leaf came with that. I don't know if they ever updated that in the Nissan Leafs, but yeah, CHAdeMO, not exactly popular here in the US, and it's kind of going out of favor in a bunch of other countries as well. All right, our final EV story, not our final story for the day, but our final EV story. Whatever happened to all of those semi-trucks that Nikola Motors built in Casa Grande? No, not in Casa Grande, in Coolidge, Arizona, just down the road from me. One of the cool things about living in the East Valley is you'd be driving along the freeway and you'd see a Nikola tray, a hydrogen truck. It'd be pulling a trailer with like an I-beam on it for testing purposes. And they were just really cool looking trucks. Well, if you hadn't heard, Nikola went out of business. So now what are they doing with all the trucks that they had? So they had about 113 Nikola trays, and it came, there was a bunch of spare parts and software and blah, 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 tools and things like that. So what happened to those? Well, there was an auction and High Road Energy bought them. From what I can gather, and I don't know anything about High Road Energy, I'd never heard of them before. They don't build semi-trucks. They provide solutions to companies around Class 8 hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, which is to say, if you wanted to buy one, they can connect you with somebody and get you, make sure they're the middleman, basically, to get you the hydrogen you need to keep the trucks fueled, and then also the trucks themselves. Anyway, High Road bought 113 Nikola trays. That was all of them. They bought the spare parts. They bought some software, tools, and some intellectual property. And I'm going to say this now, but I'm going to tell you the price later. When I first saw this, I was like, man, they must have got a screaming deal. And they did. But we'll talk about that here in just a second. These Nikola trays will be deployed in California. These are fully built trucks that actually operate. They did get a bunch of trucks that there was just like the chassis or partially built. They got a bunch of those for parts and stuff. But the 113 of these trucks will be deployed in California. I would imagine, if I had to guess, they're going to be deployed near hydrogen filling stations because there's not a lot of those in the U.S., which is why they're not traveling across the U.S. Not that they couldn't. It's just, it's a little bit harder. You may not be picking the best route if you have a hydrogen vehicle, if you have to constantly divert to a hydrogen fill station. Anyway, let's talk about the screaming deal. the trucks, the raw material, the subassemblies, all of that was an estimated value of $114 million. So the actual physical products, $114 million. This doesn't count the, I don't think it counts the tools, the software that they bought, or the intellectual property they bought. $114 million. High Road paid $3.85 million. So this is the equivalent of walking into your favorite bookstore and just, impulse buying the $3 book that you've never heard of from the author that you've never heard of, but the cover looks cool. That's the equivalent of that. It's almost no risk for $3.85 million at this point. One thing I wasn't able to find is whether or not that $3.85 million included the intellectual property and the software and the tooling stuff that they got. I don't know if it included that or if that was an extra purchase, but yeah, even if it cost a little bit extra, still a screaming deal, considering the, investors that's probably not invested billions of dollars into this company, and you're buying $114 million worth of product for pennies on the dollar. And it's pretty good.
And now, a next-level moment from AT&T Business. Say you've sent out a gigantic shipment of pillows, and they need to be there in time for International Sleep Day. You've got AT&T 5G, so you're fully confident. But the vendor isn't responding, and International Sleep Day is tomorrow. Luckily, AT&T 5G lets you deal with any issues with ease, so the pillows will get delivered and everyone can sleep soundly, especially you. AT&T 5G requires a compatible plan and device. Coverage not available everywhere. Learn more at att.com/5G network.
You know what's wild? Most people are still overpaying for car insurance just because it's a pain to switch. That's why there's Jerry. Jerry's the only app that compares rates from over 50 insurers in minutes and helps you switch fast with no spam calls or hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Before you renew your car insurance policy, do yourself a favor. Download the Jerry app or head to jerry.ai/ACAST.
Hi, this is Joe from Vanta. In today's digital world, compliance regulations are changing constantly, and earning customer trust has never mattered more. Vanta helps companies get compliant fast and stay secure with the most advanced AI, automation, and continuous monitoring out there. So whether you're a startup going for your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a growing enterprise managing vendor risk, Vanta makes it quick, easy, and scalable. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Get started at Vanta.com.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Sign up for Greenlight today at greenlight.com/podcast.
Deal. All right, everybody, that is our EV news. I just want to let you know you can support the show if you go to supportkilowatt.com. When you go to supportkilowatt.com, you can choose between Patreon or Substack if you would like to support the show. If you choose Patreon and you don't want to support the show, but you want to become a free member, you can absolutely do that. And occasionally I accidentally hit the wrong button and it goes out to everybody, including free members, ad free occasionally. But I don't know how to do that on Supercast yet. I also might be including Substack. I'm on the fence about this. I'm not sure. I know a lot of people use Substack. When I look at Supercast, only 2 people use Supercast. And I'm not looking to get rid of it for sure, but it's definitely not a preferred way for people to support the show. So if you're on Supercast, that's great. I'm never going to get rid of it as long as there are people there. The moment that it goes to 0, then I'll probably move over to something like Substack. But I'm thinking about offering Substack as a third option. Anyway, no matter where you decide to support this show, whether it's free or recommending it to a friend or whatever, any money that I get from Patreon or Substack goes back into the show. So right now I'm looking at going to CES, I'm going to be honest with you, a simple breakfast in Vegas during CES costs $30. It's ridiculously expensive. I think I'm going to pay close to $1,000 for a hotel room. Fortunately, I get into CES for free because I'm considered press. I don't want to brag, but I'm just considered press. Big thank you to Allison and Steve Sheridan for helping me out with that stuff. But anyway, the point is, if you want to drop a little money my way, you can. Go to supportkilowatt.com. That was a really long plug. I don't typically plug for that long. Let's move on to our Tesla news. Equipment that will be used to build the Cybercab is now showing up at Giga Austin, and I think this is interesting, but ultimately it's right now Tesla still has to have a driver in the driver's seat of these vehicles. And I'm not 100% sure on like the laws, but it may be that even though the states say, hey, you don't have to have somebody in the driver's seat, they still may need to have, like a steering wheel and pedals and stuff like that. So while I think it's totally okay for Tesla to build a Cybercab with steering wheel and pedals, I do think that would be an admission or recognition of failure based on what Elon has said when it comes to the Cybercab. And we'll talk a little bit more about Robotaxi at the end of the show. But yeah, it's just fine. It's not a big deal. Next up, Tesla is increasing the starting price of the Model S and Model X by $10,000, which seems like that's crazy. Nobody's buying Teslas right now. Why are they increasing the price? Because they're giving you value for your money. So for that extra $10,000, you are going to get full self-driving included, which is an $8,000 value according to Tesla. You get 4 years of premium service, which includes windshield protection. So if you don't know, Tesla offers windshield protection. If your car is damage-free, you can add windshield protection. And then if, you get a rock chip or something like that, I think it's like $100 deductible that you pay, and then you pay them X amount of dollars each month. So for the Model S, it's $15 each month. For the Model X, it's $23 each month. So that's between a $720 and $1,100 value, depending on which vehicle you have. And then they have wheel and tire protection. It's kind of the same thing as window protection. That is $16 a month for my Model Y. I actually have no idea what it costs for the X and X because I don't have a S or X and I can't look at my Tesla app to see. And I looked online and I really didn't get a lot of good information. So we're going to say that's a $768 value. And then it includes recommended maintenance. That's okay. That not a lot of maintenance on a Model S and Model X that needs to be done. Maybe change out the windshield wiper fluid, according to Elon. Maybe rotate the tires. And then there's free lifetime supercharging, which that could have a value. And then free premium connectivity, which, that's what is that? It's like $10 a month. So $480 a year, right around there. So, ultimately, your value is a little over $10,000. I don't know that it's a lot over $10,000. It kind of really depends on how much you're going to do with the supercharging. So we'll call it a little over $10,000. I have been calling on Tesla to drop the full self-driving subscription and purchase altogether. Like, just don't even do it, right? And the reason why is, from what I understand, full self-driving has a very low take rate. Now, I am saying that not knowing what the actual take rate is for full self-driving, but based on third-party reports who, they go out and they poll Tesla owners, when they buy a car, did you include full self-driving? I would imagine that somewhere in there's a question, do you subscribe to full self-driving? But Tesla themselves they've hinted that the take rates are improving, but they're still not great. And here's the big thing why I know the take rates are not high, because if they were high, if they were even 50% of the people buying a Tesla bought full self-driving, Tesla would be screaming it from the mountaintops, and they're not. Elon keeps saying that AI and, the Tesla robot and robotaxi and all this stuff, this is the future of Tesla. But he also says, hey, once you experience full self-driving for the first time, you're going to want to buy it or subscribe. And that just hasn't been the case for a lot of people. Now, I know there are a lot of people in this community that love their full self-driving and almost use it exclusively. And that's great. I'm happy for you. But that's not it's not other people's experience. So I don't think their take rate's that high based on those factors, right? And covering this for 9 years at this point. So I think what would be a better solution is Tesla raise the price of the car by like $2,000, right? And then they include full self-driving with every car that they sell. And then for the people who have purchased full self-driving already, the next time they go to buy a car, Tesla gives them a little break on their vehicle. So, they don't feel cheated that they spent $8,000, in some cases $15,000 for a feature that other people are now getting in the purchase price. And then for the people who are currently subscribing or don't have it at all, Tesla just drops that price down to $20 or $30 a month. And I think most people for $20 or $30 a month would be like, you know what, even if I don't use it that often, I'll absolutely spend the money every month to pay Tesla, versus $99 is a little bit harder, especially in the economy that we have currently in the United States for anyway. I don't know how the economies are elsewhere in the world. I don't think anybody's going to be too interested in spending another $100. I think that's a harder sell. Not impossible, because clearly people do it. I just think you would get more people if you drop that price down. All right. So that is my TED Talk on full self-driving and why Tesla should include it in the car price.
Tired of your car insurance rate going up even with a clean driving record? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry compares rates side by side from over 50 top insurers and helps you switch with ease. Jerry even tracks market rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Switch with confidence, download the Jerry app, or visit jerry.ai/ACAST today.
Hi, this is Joe from Vanta. In today's digital world, compliance regulations are changing constantly, and earning customer trust has never mattered more. Vanta helps companies get compliant fast and stay secure with the most advanced AI, automation, and continuous monitoring out there. So whether you're a startup going for your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a growing enterprise managing vendor risk, Vanta makes it quick, easy, and scalable. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Get started at Vanta.com.
Our final story. Tesla has officially announced the larger Model Y that has been rumored. It is called the Model Y L. I think it should be called the Model Y XL, but that's just me. This is a 6-seater vehicle. And speaking of seats, Tesla has new seats for this Model Y. These seats are heated and ventilated for the front seat, which I love ventilated seats. It's got adjustable headrests and adjustable thigh support, which I think is great. When I'm driving for long periods of time, I would like to adjust that thigh support a little bit because sometimes I get cramps. So I think that's awesome. The second row seats are similar to the front seats, except for they don't have the thigh support. Still really good for the two people that are sitting in the second row. They have power fold down seats, which is a feature that I love. It also has powered armrests, so you can raise the armrest up to whatever is most comfortable for you, and it's powered. You don't have to do it manually like an animal. And then the third row, the article that I read says that there's enough space for an adult male to sit back there and still have headroom. How much space is that? I don't know. Like, I'm 5'11", but I do work with a guy who's 5'6", so he's an adult male. Technically, he's an adult male. Legally, he's an adult male. If you put both of us in the back seat, we're going to have very different experiences. Anyway, I I'm also 5'10". I lied. I'm 5'10". At one point in time, I was close to 5'11", but I'm 5'10". Anyway, the third row seats are also heated and powered fold down, but they're not ventilated and they don't have the cool armrest feature. But still, pretty cool. Another cool feature, Tesla just kind of put some really neat things in this car. When you open up the back gate, there's a sub-trunk, and it's got a little cover over it. And it's actually pretty roomy in that sub-trunk. And oftentimes, if I have to go in somewhere and I won't be somewhat close to my car to hear the alarm, I'll drop my backpack in there because, I got a lot of equipment I carry with me. And I feel pretty confident because it's not super obvious that it's down there. Anyway, the sub-trunk cover has a magnetic latch that will cling to the back of the third row seat. So when you open it up, it stays up instead of falling down when you're getting something out or putting something in. So I think that's great. It's got a better speaker system. It's got a little bit better suspension with variable dampening shock absorbers. Slightly bigger center console screen in the front, which the original was 15.4 inches and the Model Y L is 16 inches. It also has a rear screen. It's the same size as the Model Ys. There's air vents in the B-pillar, which it's so nice. Oh, my kids complain about the lack of air vents in the back of the car. So the air vents in the B-pillar is a nice feature. And then speaking of air vents, one of the things that frustrates me about my car is, one, I have to turn my iPhone upside down so it will charge. That is a very frustrating thing because it won't charge the right way, the correct way, the regular way. But also it can get hot when I'm charging it that way. So what Tesla did with the Model Y L is where you go to put your phone in the center of that. So you have a phone that can go on the left, and then you have this center divide, and then a phone that can go on the right. Well, the center divide has small air vents that, spit out cool air that circulates around the phone to help keep it from overheating. I think that's a nice feature. Honestly, I just use my charging cable at this point, which is, I feel like a waste. But also, when I'm not using my phone to navigate, I plug it in and I put it in the center console, and then I close the center console, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. And I think I called the screen on the center console. That's not true. The infotainment screen is 16 inches to correct what I just said. In terms of range, Tesla is saying 751 kilometers, which is 466 miles. We'll see if this actually hits that with real world range. Range is calculated differently in every country, so this number might be correct. I don't know. It also might be optimistic. It might be underestimating. In terms of size, so we're just going to compare the standard boring blah Model Y to the more exciting Model Y L. So the Model Y is 83.8 inches wide. So is the Model Y L. The Model Y is 188.6 inches long. The Model Y L is 195.9 inches long. So it's 7 inches longer, not super long, a little bit. And then it is about 2 inches taller in terms of height. So little bit of a bigger car, not huge. In terms of cargo room in the Model Y, you have 76 cubic feet, but in the Model Y L, you have nearly 90 cubic feet. Now, this vehicle is going to start at $47,000, which is $3,600 more than the Model Y long range in China. These are converted into U.S. currency from Chinese currency. Speaking of Chinese, this vehicle right now is only available in China. It might come to the United States, and then, everybody was optimistic, and then Elon posted on X, this variant of the Model Y doesn't start production in the U.S. until the end of next year. And then he goes on to say in the same post, might not ever, given the advent of self-driving in America. So according to Elon, the only holdup for bringing the Model Y L to the United States is if Tesla can actually solve full autonomy by next year, then there's no need, for some reason, to bring this car to the U.S. To which I say, I look forward to seeing the Model Y L on the road in 2027. Tesla's not going to solve autonomy next year. Like, especially like there's still so much regulation. Even if they did solve full autonomy, full level 5 autonomy, there's still so much red tape that they have to go through to get all 50 states and Puerto Rico on board. And, I don't know how it works in Washington, D.C. Maybe that's controlled by a federal agency. But anyway, they still have to go through a lot of red tape to get all these states on board. It's not just as easy as, showing up, smiling, give a little twinkle in your eye, and they're like, okay, cool, you're ready to go. That's not going to happen. Now, I can see Tesla looking at how the Model Y L does in China and whatever other market they're going to sell it in before they sell it in the United States, and seeing how it sells and seeing how people in the United States react to it and deciding, you know what, I don't think we're going to bring it here because it's not selling well and there doesn't seem to be a lot of excitement in the U.S. for this car. Well, I could totally see him not doing that. That makes total sense to me. But putting all your eggs in the autonomy basket and continuing to hope and pray that you're actually going to solve this in a, we'll say relatively short time. I've been doing this since 2016. Elon's been talking about autonomy before I started doing this podcast. At some point in time, you have to recognize that the likelihood of you solving this problem next year, every single year, it becomes a joke. And while I'm a person who wants autonomy sooner than later, the reality is you can get even, let's say you get 95% of the way there, that 5% is going to have a huge spotlight on it. So anytime that car succeeds 95% of the time, and it does awesome 95% of the time, the spotlight is going to be on the 5% of the time that it does not. And even, the small percentage out of that somebody dies or is seriously injured. I just think that little bit extra that Tesla and some of these other companies need to solve, it's not there yet. Not at a wide scale. Like, I am totally on board with companies like Waymo and Zoox and Tesla testing these cars in limited numbers, right? And in specific places, like there's Waymos all over the place in my part of Phoenix that I live in. I'm fine with them. They don't bother me. They're doing great. But that does not mean because they're doing great in Austin or Phoenix or San Francisco, which they're, whatever. There's problems in San Francisco. San Francisco is a hard city to drive in, even for a human. But for these companies to succeed, and I'm not just picking on Tesla here, I'm saying for all of them, for these companies to succeed at scale, you have to have the trust of the public. And while I think people are warming up to this stuff, I don't think we're there yet. So even if these companies completely, I won't even pick on Tesla here because I'm talking about all these companies, and you can talk back to me on your in your AirPods, and you can say, well, hey, dummy, Tesla has a different system than Waymo has, and it's better, or Waymo's better than Tesla for whatever. It doesn't really matter to me. You can send me the emails and I'm still going to disagree with you, no matter, you can speak till you're blue in the face. Like, that's the approach that people are taking is not what I'm talking about here. What I'm saying is, if the public's not on board and the regulators aren't on board, it doesn't really matter that you solved autonomy at that point, because nobody's going to approve it until the public feels comfortable. And again, I know there are folks out there who are listening to this who are totally comfortable. I've heard you. And when I take a Waymo, I do not feel concerned in the least that there's nobody driving this car and I'm just hanging out. I took a Waymo like 2 weeks ago, twice in one day. No problem. Like, it's a great service. However, I know people who will not get in a Waymo. They don't even want to be driving next to a Waymo. And I've offered to pay for their ride so they can have that experience, and they refuse. So I think, solving the autonomy part of this is really important. I don't think it's next year, by the way, but also gaining the public's trust is probably more important than solving the autonomy part. I think people largely are okay with the testing because, there is a benefit. The benefit now is I'm a 50-year-old man, soon to be 51. At some point in time, I won't be able to drive, and I don't want to sit in my house like my grandparents did and do nothing and just wait and rot to die. I want to be able to go out and do things and still be active, even if I can't personally drive the vehicle. So autonomy for me is really important. Now you could say, well, you could get an Uber or whatever, but it feels more self-sufficient if there's nobody driving. I'm not relying on a person. I'm relying on technology. Anyway, I think I've pretty much yapped long enough, and I probably said some things where I'm still going to get emails, and send me your emails. I'm happy to hear you out. But this idea that we're not going to bring this car here to the U.S. because we've solved autonomy is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And on top of that, even if you do solve autonomy, there's still plenty of people who are going to go out and buy a new car. It's just, I don't know. Elon's view on this, I agree in the overview that we need autonomy. And I would have loved it if my kids will be able to start driving in 3 years. I would have loved it if they had solved autonomy at that level and my kids would never had to drive a car. But that's not good. That's not the reality. And then on top of that, there are people who will never buy a Tesla, and then the other car companies aren't very close anyway either. And I don't know. Anyway, I'm all worked up, and I'm going to go take my blood pressure medication and just take a nice long bubble bath and relax and think about something that's not this, because none of this was scripted. Past the point where Tesla should not be putting all of their eggs in the autonomy basket. That's all just me ranting. So I don't know if this is entertaining. If this rant entertained you, let me know. If not, I tend to cut these things out. But I'm going to leave this one in. You're welcome. All right. If you want to email me, Bodie, BODIE, at 918digital. If you want to find me on X, it's 918digital. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm Bodie Grimm on LinkedIn. And I think that's it. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you on Friday, where we're going to cover Lucid Motors earnings call, and we'll talk a little bit about the Lucid Gravity off-road that they just announced. All right, everybody, I will talk to you on Friday. Full disclosure, I don't remember any of my rant, so if it was offensive, I'm sorry.
Hi, this is Joe from Vanta. In today's digital world, compliance regulations are changing constantly, and earning customer trust has never mattered more. Vanta helps companies get compliant fast and stay secure with the most advanced AI, automation, and continuous monitoring out there. So whether you're a startup going for your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a growing enterprise managing vendor risk, Vanta makes it quick, easy, and scalable. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Get started at Vanta.com.
Get yourself ready for a trip through McDonald land. There's thick-shaped volcanoes, you'll even find a French fry thatch. Now just turn around and see if you won't find a hamburger patch as you're heading for
Order the McDonaldland meal today and get the Mount McDonaldland shake with your very own character souvenir kit.
Did you know 39% of teen drivers admit to texting while driving? Even scarier, those who text are more likely to speed and run red lights. Shockingly, 94% know it's dangerous, but do it anyway. As a parent, you can't always be in the car, but you can stay connected to their safety with Greenlight Infinity's driving reports. Monitor their driving habits, see if they're using their phone, speeding, and more. These reports provide real data for meaningful conversations about safety. Plus, with weekly updates, you can track their progress over time. Help keep your teens safe. Sign up for Greenlight Infinity at greenlight.com/podcast.